Hi everyone, so I just thought I would film myself painting this piece. I'll show you the reference photo at the beginning. So I took this photo on a family bike ride at the weekend and thought it was really beautiful, and I thought I would have a go translating it into a painting. So it's quite challenging in a way because you've got this really bright acidic yellow, which is not a colour I use very often. Also, there's a lot of kind of light and shade, there's lots of leaves, lots going on. Sorry, as always, that my chair is insanely squeaky. My chair is literally 100 years old. It's an Edwardian bentwood chair, so it's very squeaky. And sorry that my jumper is so ratty and bally as well. I'm just all about comfort when I'm in the studio. So I'm setting up my paint palette. I thought this would be a good one to film because I'm showing you how to translate something quite complicated into something that captures the essence of that thing but also simplifies it in a way. So yeah, sort of how to do that, kind of loosen up and capture a complicated thing without getting overwhelmed in all the details, so capturing the essence of it. I only used 2 paintbrushes for the whole painting, and I also do some quite interesting colour mixing in this piece. So you've seen the reference photo. There's yellow, there's green, there's brown. I've got 2 different reds on my palette, so you're probably thinking, where do those reds come in? I will use them. So I'm setting up my palette with 2 yellows. So I've got a deep yellow or cadmium yellow. I've got a lemon yellow. I've also got ultramarine blue there. You can't really see because it looks black. I've got ultramarine blue. I've got 2 greens. I've got a sap green and I've got a viridian green. And then I've got 2 reds. I've got I think, an alizarin crimson and a vermilion. So I've actually got a warm and cool yellow, a warm and cool red, a warm and cool green. I've just got the one blue, and I've also got black and white, but I'm not really going to be using the black very much, I don't think. So I'm just sketching really lightly. I know you literally cannot see what I'm sketching in the video, but I can see it. It's just to make sure I've got the composition right. So I'm sketching with a watercolour pencil. I think I'm using dark olive because I thought that would blend in with all the greenery. So I'm going to start by laying down my initial colours using a filbert brush, and this is actually the filbert brush that I am designing with Craft Ammo. So this is a sample, but I'm testing out with this painting. I'm really liking it. So you're probably thinking, what am I doing? What colour am I making? I'm making the ground, that kind of dusty dirt colour. So I'm starting with orange. So I've got that deep yellow, the vermilion, so any warm yellow, any warm red. Then add some ultramarine blue, then add some white. And then you get that lovely beigey kind of dust colour. And I need some cooler version of this colour as well for shadow, so I'm adding more blue. But orange plus blue is a great way for making sand, stone, dirt, any colour like that. Like, don't just mix yellow and white. It's not going to look right. So yeah, that is how I'm mixing that. And I'm just going to start kind of laying in the ground quite loosely. And I'm going to leave some white space because there's very dappled light. So there's bits of really bright light areas where the sun's coming through the leaves, and you can either leave the white space on the paper or you could add it in with white paint, but given the choice 99 times out of 100 I'm going to leave the white paper because I think seeing the white paper feels very fresh, and for me putting white paint over the top just never feels fresh. It never has that kind of brightness and purity that the actual bare paper does, so I always prefer just to leave little bits of white paper. And this is one of these light colours that is going to change colour a lot as it dries. It's kind of going to go, I think it's dark and then it'll go light and dark again, or maybe the other way, it'll light, then dark and then lighter again. But anyway, it probably looks quite dark now because it's the only thing on the paper, but once I get all the other colours on, it'll sort of balance out a bit. And then painting that really vibrant yellow field. So lemon yellow is the only colour for it really. I'm putting a teeny tiny bit of black in just in case I need a little bit of shadow somewhere. And I love lemon yellow with black in it. It's one of my favourites. It makes a very kind of muted, greeny colour, but super, super muted. I'm a big fan. But I think I'm mostly just going to want pure yellow for this field. And a tiny bit of this warmer yellow, but not much. So when you've got something super bright like this is the kind of the star piece, the star colour of this painting is this really, really bright yellow. You want to sort of make sure everything else brings balance to the painting. So we've got bright, the ground, the dusty kind of ground is muted, and then we're going to have greens that are light and dark. So we're going to have light, dark, bright, muted, and that's going to bring balance to the painting. So the that yellow is really bright and saturated and pure, and if every colour was bright and saturated pure, it would just be too much to look at. I'm just mixing up a little bit of green here. So I'm mixing some of the sap green with a little bit of that warm yellow, so that's a deep yellow. And then a tiny bit of red to make it muted, which has probably made it a bit too muted, so I'm probably going to go back and add maybe a little bit more green and yellow. Actually, I think it's okay. Sometimes once you really give it a good mix, things aren't as dark or as muted as you think once you get all the paint off the brush. And then I've made a darker version of it with a tiny bit of blue. So I'm just really loosely putting in some of the green area, kind of looking for where the lighter tones of green are. And some of the darker tones. Loose, I think, is probably a word you're going to hear me use a lot with this painting. My approach with a painting like this, when you've got quite a complicated scene, is just keep it loose and gestural and instinctive, like just work instinctively to capture what you can see in front of you, and don't get too bogged down in painting individual leaves or anything like that. Okay, now I'm making a cooler green, so Viridian Green with a little bit of alizarin crimson, one of my favourite colour mixes. You probably will have seen me do this before. If you've been to one of my workshops, I would have taught you this colour mix. So the hills in the background look quite cool in comparison. It's a bit darker than I expected, so I'm just putting a little bit of white in, just working sort of wet on wet with this. And then some warmer green as well, so just mixing the green I've already got. You'll see as I go on, a lot of my mixing is just what's already on my palette that I can use. That's basically what most of my mixing is. So I'm making brown now. I've decided to put the tree trunks in. So I've made an orange, so that's the deep yellow, the vermilion red, and then some ultramarine blue, which makes a nice cool brown. And I'm still doing everything with the same brush, still using this filbert brush. I'm kind of using it quite upright on its side, which gives you a nice thin line, but it's not too perfect. It feels slightly wobbly and bumpy, which is perfect for a tree branch or a tree trunk. I think one of the key things when you're painting anything from nature, so trees, plants, landscapes, is actually making things not too perfect, because it just makes it feel more real. So yeah, I'm just moving the paintbrush round, so sometimes I'm using its flat side, and then sometimes I'm using just the very edge of it to get thin lines. And as you can probably tell, I don't really have that much of a plan when I go into a painting like this. Like, quite often I'll just have pause and think and then go, what next? And, you know, it's not a case of do all the green, then do all the tree. Like, I did a little bit of green, and then I put the tree in, and I'm going to put a bit more green in. I'm a very instinctive painter. Kind of make it up as I go along. So I'm putting some light greens into the tree. I'm putting a bit of that lemon yellow in. And then the red for just to make it a bit more muted. And I just want to point out the way I'm holding my brush. So the closer you hold your brush to the end, to the metal part of the brush, the more control you have, and then the further up you hold your brush, the less control you have. But this also means that your brush strokes are much looser, so it's kind of finding a balance. So let's say I was painting someone's face, and I was doing like one of my portraits where you've got a tiny little person, and I'm just doing like a little bit of detail, like just painting their cheeks or their nose or what have you. I would be holding the brush really far down, so I was in total control of it. But then something like this, where I want it to be very loose, I'm holding the brush much further up, and then it gives me this wide range of movements with what I can do with the brush. So then you get all these lovely gestural brush strokes. And it's same when you're using a pencil. So if you hold the pencil really near the end, you have a lot of control, you have a lot of pressure, but it's also quite tight and controlled. And then if you hold the pencil further up, you'll get a much looser sweeping line. And it's not a case of one is good, one is bad, they're just different. So there's certain circumstances where you'd want less control over your pencil, you'd want a lighter, looser line. So maybe you're doing your very initial rough sketch, and that could really help. And then maybe you're putting some fine details in at the end, and you actually want a bit more control, so you'll hold your pencil closer to the end. So I've put most of the colour in now, and most of the lighter green colour, and now I'm putting some darker shadows in over the top. And then the colour mix, this is one of my classic me mix everything on the palette colour mixes. So I had Viridian Green with some alizarin crimson in it, and then I've added some lemon yellow to that, but then that was too yellow, so then I added some ultramarine blue, and I think that was a bit too blue, so then I put a little bit of vermilion in to make it more muted. So yeah, if I was making this video as a how to like follow me step by step and paint this painting, or if I was doing it as a project for my book, I would not have this colour mix. I would find a way to make this colour in less steps, like maybe just using 2 or 3 different colours. I wouldn't be mixing 5 different colours, but I'm not filming this as a tutorial, this is just a painting I'm doing for my own enjoyment, so I will do yeah, basically whatever colour mixes I fancy, just kind of what's on my palette and whatever gets the end result. So yeah, that is what's gone into that colour mix to make a green that is dark and muted with some blue undertones, so it kind of feels dark and shadowy but still feels like it's the same green that goes with the rest of the tree. So at this point I've decided to swap brush. I want some smaller brush marks, so I'm swapping to one of my other favourite brushes. So this is a size 4 round brush. But as you can see, the filbert brush is very versatile, and I've managed to get a huge amount of brush marks out of that, from laying in big areas, for putting in the foliage, for doing the tree, which is actually really nice for the tree because it makes the branches look so natural. It gives such a lovely line. But yeah, for this work now, I want a bit of a smaller brush that's going to allow me to capture the leaves. Just adding a bit more yellow to my palette and a bit more of the Viridian green. And yeah, all my brush strokes are very kind of light and dabbing, which I think is my kind of signature thing when it comes to painting landscapes and nature. And I'm just putting some grass in. So again, this round brush is incredibly versatile. I can create these lovely rounded leaves, but I can also use it on its side and just use the tip and put blades of grass in. So I'm all about versatility in materials, that you don't need loads and loads of paintbrushes and loads of tubes of paint to get started painting. You know, I've done this whole painting with 2 paintbrushes. You really don't need many paintbrushes at all. And you don't need that many tubes of paint either. You know, if you have a warm and cool variety of each primary colour and then maybe black and white, and you really know how to mix your colours, you can mix everything from that. So just going to put the fence in now. So again, I'm using that brown that I mixed earlier, and I mixed an orange, so I mixed the vermilion red, the deep yellow, and then added the ultramarine blue. Again, with this fence, I haven't sketched out where it's going to go, and I'm just using the tip of this brush and holding it quite loosely, so it's giving quite a natural, slightly shaky look to the line, which I like. Again, I want everything to feel natural and organic. I don't want anything to be too perfect. Just running low, so I'm making a bit more of this brown. And then there's another fence kind of going into the distance that's in the sun, so it's a bit lighter, so I'm using a warmer mixture of the brown, and then I'm also adding a bit more water to make it lighter. But I've got a little bit too much on my paintbrush, I'm just taking a bit off. And then seeing these warmer, lighter fence in the background has made me realise that I actually want to make the fence in the foreground a little bit darker and cooler because it's in shadow, and the interplay of warm and cool, light and dark, shadow and light is really important in this painting. Sorry, my head's in the way. It was just with certain fine details, you've just got to get close to see what you're doing. But yeah, sorry that my head's in the way there. So I'm going back over these lines. Again, it's the same brown mix. It's the same 3 primary colours, just in different proportions. So this one has more blue in it, so it makes it darker and it makes it cooler. And then because it's cooler and darker, it looks like it's in shadow. And then the other fence is warmer and lighter, so it looks like it's in the sunshine. And we're standing in the shadow of the tree and we're looking out to the field, which is in sunshine. And then while I've got this kind of darker bluey shadow colour, I'm just going back in and putting more depth into some shadowy areas. So looking at where there's already shadow and thinking, where could that shadow be a little bit deeper? So putting some more shadow on the tree trunk, and then the dark areas of leaves and where the leaves meet the grass. Realised that I should have put some grass kind of behind the gate, but I forgot to do that, so I'm putting it in now, which isn't as good, but it'll do the job. And just putting some more of this shadowy grass in the foreground. Just putting in a little bit more grass. And you can see when I do the stalks of grass, when I pick up the colour, I also flatten the brush at the same side, at the same time against the palette, and then I can get that fine lines on the grass. And then I realised I just need a little bit more tonal variation on the ground, so I've put a little bit more blue into that kind of beigey mix we had from the beginning. So I'm just dotting on that just for a few little like pebbles and stones, and then a bit of shadow kind of around the fence, which you can't see at the moment, but you will see as it dries because it's going to dry darker. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, guys.